Chapter 1 Advanced City Level 6. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Feeling dizzy, Chen Fan blinked awake. Weird, where am I? That he was in some kind of prison, his hands cuffed, and his body felt like it belonged to a kid, maybe 12 or 13 years old. Iron bars stood between him and the outside, a dim light barely illuminated the cell. Chen Fan frowned, trying to remember his last mission. The leader set him up. He took out all the assassins, but died in the explosion. Could it be rebirth? Before he could even get a good look around, a jolt of pain shot through his head, and a flood of memories slammed into his mind. A few minutes later, Chen Fan pieced it together. He'd been arrested. His original identity? He was a general on the Rocks pirates ship, and Wang Ji's adopted son, and right now, he was captured by the Navy, and his foster dad. No one knew if he was alive or dead. Last anyone saw him, he was trading blows with Garp. Are those Navy guys nuts? They tossed some little kid down here on level 6 and locked him up with me. The voice, rough and loud, startled Chen Fan. He finally noticed the massive figure in the corner, easily 10 feet tall. Even sitting down, he loomed over everything. Chains and cuffs bound his hands and feet. Hearing the giant's voice, Chen Fan's face darkened. He'd been a little excited to be reborn in the world of One Piece. After all, he knew this world and its characters well. He'd hoped to ride his knowledge to the top. Now, here he was, on level 6 of Impel Down. To top it off, he felt weak. His physical condition was barely better than back on Earth. That might be impressive back home, but this was the world of One Piece. He was probably on par with a regular grunt in the Navy, a kid with 0 strength, thrown into the legendary hellhole. Was this how his story ended before it even began? Hey, kid, you deaf or something? You scared silent? The giant leered. Lay off him, Barrack. He's probably still in shock. Yeah, but what's the Navy thinking? Dragging a kid down here to Impel Down? Seriously. We all have bounties over 100 million, and they stick this squirt in the same pen as us. Everyone laughed, amused by the unexpected arrival of a child. Chen Fan ignored them, too drained to even care. He focused on sorting through his memories, trying to figure out the timeline. It was a hellish start, sure, but he was alive. If there was a chance, he wouldn't give up. After a moment, he realized he was in the year 1494 of the Hyuan calendar. Roger wasn't the pirate king yet, and the admirals weren't Akainu and the others. This could work. He knew the future. His thoughts jumped to the rumble fruit on Sky Island. Enru hadn't eaten it yet. Logia-type fruits were powerful, especially the rumble fruit with its devastating power, but Chen Fan's face didn't light up. He was stuck on level 6, with no way to escape, let alone acquire some crazy power. His expression grim. Chen Fan saw only 2 possible escape routes. 1, wait for Shiki the Golden Lion to get captured and then seize the opportunity to break out. 2, somehow boost his strength enough to break out himself. Both options seemed almost impossible. As for the first, Roger wasn't the pirate king yet, so it would be years before Shiki got captured and made his escape, and breaking out required at least the strength of a rear admiral. If he couldn't beat a few regular guards, what chance did he have? The second option was even tougher. Breaking out of level 6. The odds were stacked against him. Both options came down to strength. He needed to get stronger. Chen Fan scanned his surroundings. In the dim light, he could barely make out the layout of his cell. The surrounding cells were shrouded in darkness, except for the one directly across from him. He saw hulking figures chained in the corners, limbs shackled. Others, like him, just wore simple handcuffs. Hey, why are some people chained up with all those chains, and others just have the regular handcuffs? Chen Fan asked the question aloud, hoping to learn something. Well, now, ain't that interesting? For a second there, I thought the kid was catatonic. I figured they were hiding something, but the Navy really is blind, huh? They don't even know what the chains are for. Most of them laughed, mocking the Navy for being so incompetent that they'd stuck a clueless kid on the same level as them. Alright, kid, I'll tell ya. The ones with the chains are strong dudes without devil fruit powers. Those shackles ain't just for show. They got needles that stick into your wrists. Try to break free, and those needles snap your tendons. For devil fruit users like us, they slap on C-prism stone cuffs to weaken our powers, some of the weaker ones can't even throw a punch with these things on, looks like you're wearing the same C-prism stone cuffs, kid. The old man, bored after so long with no one to talk to, answered Chen Fan's question patiently. Chapter 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After figuring things out, Chen Fan was relieved he wasn't chained up. That would have made training in the cell a real pain. Just then, the cell door on the 6th level of Impel Down clanked open, a dim light spilled in as 7 or 8 figures shuffled in. They were all hunched over, shrouded in bulky black robes that hid even their faces. Wordlessly, they placed plates of food in front of each cell, then they left, no extra movement except setting down the food. Chen Fan glanced at the food, 3 plates in front of each cell, enough for 3 people, it seemed. Looking around, he saw some cells held 1 person, some 2, and a few with 3, so, 3 prisoners max per cell. But why the 3 meals for everyone? His stomach growled, snapping him back to reality. Time to fuel up before training, but just as he reached for the food, a jolt of danger shot through him, and he threw up his hands to defend himself. A huge fist slammed into him. The force sent him flying, staggering back until he hit the cell wall. Well, ain't you a feisty little brat, blockkin, like that? But if you wanna eat, tough luck for a couple days. Maybe I'll toss you a crumb when I'm feelin' generous, but for now, this grub's all mine. Barrack sneered down at Chen Fan. Chen Fan's face darkened. He clenched his fists, nails digging into his palms. That hit, if he hadn't reacted fast and braced his arm, he'd be out cold, not just bruised. This is one piece alright. The power is insane. And that guy's holding back because of the chains. Hey, Barrack, gotta be nice to the kid. Wouldn't want him dyin' on us too soon. Yeah, easy there. He's just a little tyke. Don't starve him to death, though. You're right to rough him up a little. Can you believe those Navy bastards are sending kids to the 6th level these days? That the surrounding pirates cackled, but no one offered to help. He was just a 12 or 13-year-old kid, after all. Head down, eyes burning, Chen Fan knew one thing: going toe-to-toe with Barrack right now would be suicide, but maybe, just maybe, there was a chance. Ignoring the taunts, Chen Fan retreated to a corner of the cell. Barrack, seeing the kid just give up and curl up, lost interest. He'd been hoping for a fight. The other prisoners, seeing there'd be no show, listlessly slumped back down in their own cells. Later that evening, the food delivery guys made their rounds again, but this time, Chen Fan stayed put in his corner, making no move for the food. Seeing that the kid wasn't going to play, Barrack, bored out of his skull, said, "Alright, kid. Survive the next 3 days, and I might give you some of my grub." Chen Fan didn't even twitch. Instead, he was carefully picking up a sharp rock he found on the floor. What a drag. No fun at all. Barrack chuckled. He just saw Chen Fan as a toy to amuse himself. The evening wind howled, and soon, it was early morning. Most of the prisoners were asleep. Chen Fan's eyes snapped open. During the day, he'd overheard the old guy next door saying there was an unspoken rule on the 6th level: no using observation hockey willy-nilly. Nobody wants to be spied on all the time, after all. And he wasn't the only one who mentioned it. So Chen Fan was pretty sure it was true. He stared at the hulking figure of Barrack, diagonally across from him, clutching the sharp rock in his hand. Time to strike. He was weaker than the big guy, no doubt, but Barrack was chained up and wouldn't dare go all out. Today, while he still had some strength, was his best shot. Otherwise, in a couple of days, he'd be too weak to do anything. Without hesitation, Chen Fan moved toward Barrack, stepping as quietly as he could. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. The cell was dead silent. He was getting closer and closer. When he was less than 3 feet away, he suddenly lunged, right hand raised, stabbing the sharp rock straight at Barrack's throat. A wave of danger shot through him, and Barrack's eyes snapped open. But it was too late. Blood gushed as the rock pierced deep into his throat. Agonizing pain. Arg! Barrack tried to scream, but his throat was filling with blood. He clutched at his wound with one hand, the other clenched into a fist, swinging wildly at Chen Fan. Chen Fan jumped back. He hadn't expected Barrack to be so tough. He still had the strength to fight, even with his throat torn. Not hesitating, Chen Fan dodged to the right. Barrack, missing the blow, tried again. He could feel his life force draining away. He kept swinging, trying to hit Chen Fan. He knew he was probably going to die here, and his only thought was to drag Chen Fan down with him. Chen Fan dodged the wild blows. Seeing the blood gushing from Barrack's wrist, he understood. Barrack wanted them both dead. One hit, and he'd be seriously injured, if not killed outright, but as long as he could survive, Barrack was a dead man. Lucky for him, Barrack was always held back by the chains. Otherwise, one push into a corner, and he'd be done for. The commotion in the cell had naturally drawn the attention of the other pirates. When they saw the blood in the darkness, they were shocked. They hadn't expected the kid to be so ruthless, to actually try and kill Barrack, but after the shock came excitement. They hadn't seen a good fight in ages. Even if they couldn't see it clearly, the sound was enough. Nice one, kid. You actually went for it. Why you hidin' back there? Get in there and scrap with the big idiot. What's the point of hidin' all the time? Yeah, charge in and finish him. Punchin's more fun than runnin' around. The pirates, who had been yelling at Barrack to beat Chen Fan, were now egging him on to attack. Chen Fan ignored them all. He stared at Barrack, a wild beast in front of him, and focused on dodging. Chapter 3 Start Training. You are listening at novelfull.audio. He knew that as long as he kept eating, he'd survive. And in this world, survival was everything. As time wore on, Barrack's breath grew shallow, and his punches slowed. Chen Fan was sweating, too, a sheen on his forehead, his face tight with strain. He'd been dodging non-stop, and his energy was draining fast. He was nearing his limit. This was now a battle of wills, a question of who would crack first. Sensing he couldn't hold on much longer, Barrack attacked with renewed ferocity. Chen Fan could only evade, knowing that in his exhausted state, a single punch could be fatal. Seconds ticked by. 1, 2, 10, 30. Chen Fan reached his breaking point. Barrack's fist, loaded with power, came at him again. This time, Chen Fan, completely spent, couldn't get out of the way in time. He could feel the wind shear off the approaching fist, but just when it was inches from his head, it stopped. Looks like I win after all. Chen Fan stared at the frozen Barrack, a shiver of relief washing over him. From the other cells, the pirates groaned in disappointment. Hearing Chen Fan's voice, they knew Barrack had lost. Then, with a crash, Barrack's massive body hit the floor. Even in death, his eyes were wide with frustration and rage, locked on Chen Fan. A true eyes-wide-open demise. Damn it, Barrack's a loser. He could have taken out that little twerp if he'd just hung in there. Yeah, what a waste. The kid just got lucky. Survived by the skin of his teeth. Tell me about it. But you gotta hand it to the kid, he's got guts, going right at Barrack like that. The sound of Barrack's body hitting the ground echoed through the cells. The pirates cursed him for failing to finish Chen Fan before he died. Chen Fan didn't give a damn about their opinions. He just collapsed on the floor. Huff, huff. Gasping for air, he felt the tension of that life-or-death moment slowly bleed away. He glanced at Barrack's corpse and sighed. This was One Piece's world all right, full of monsters. The guy took a stab through the throat and still kept going for 3 minutes, with the energy to throw punches. Just insane. Gurgle, gurgle. His stomach growling, Chen Fan zeroed in on the untouched food in front of the cell. Without hesitation, he crawled over and started to devour it. Almost as soon as he swallowed the first bite, Chen Fan felt something shift inside him. A faint warmth started spreading, slowly boosting his strength. The old injury on his arm seemed to be easing. Thinking he might be imagining things, Chen Fan wolfed down the rest of the food. In just a couple of minutes, he polished off the bowl and drained the water. With each bite, the warm sensation grew stronger. It felt like it was flowing through his meridians, strengthening his organs, and slowly repairing injuries and restoring his stamina. A smile spread across Chen Fan's face. He hadn't been too confident about escaping from level 6, but now, with this new ability, his odds had just gotten a whole lot better. This meant he could spend less time recovering and more time training, and if his physical strength kept gradually increasing, he could eventually become a serious threat. snapping back to reality, Chen Fan realized he felt oddly full. He was surprised. Given that he hadn't eaten all day and had just survived a brutal fight, this single plate of food had somehow managed to fill him up. It seemed to pack a surprising amount of energy. After finishing, Chen Fan retreated back to his corner. He'd just been through hell. Even with the healing warmth, his eyelids felt heavy. He just wanted to rest. The pirates in the other cells watched as Chen Fan, the victor, retreated to his corner. Realizing there was no more entertainment to be had, they drifted back to their own dark corners, aimlessly trying to rest. That was the worst thing about level 6. Unlike the other levels, which had unique but still somewhat bearable environments, level 6 was defined by endless isolation. Every pirate was trapped in perpetual darkness, with no chance of escape. Even bodily functions were handled through a waste disposal chute. Endless loneliness and darkness. That was the punishment on Impel Down's 6th floor. Chen Fan, however, was oddly grateful that he'd been sent straight to level 6, otherwise, his body wouldn't have been able to withstand the harsh conditions of the upper levels. The next day, Chen Fan woke up at dawn. Normally, sunlight would be streaming in, but there wasn't sunlight here. Only a weak, flickering fire offered the smallest sliver of light. After a night's rest, Chen Fan's mind was sharper. Ignoring Barrick's corpse, he immediately started doing push-ups. Now that the problem was taken care of, he could start putting his plan into motion, training to increase his strength. 1, 2, 10, 100, 1000. Sweat poured down Chen Fan's body, dripping onto the floor. Some of the other pirates, hearing the sounds, realized what Chen Fan was doing. Kid's trying to work out. He's never gonna get out of here. What's the point? Just lie down, kid. What's the use of all that effort? Hey kid, sit down. You think you can train your way out of here? That the pirates mocked Chen Fan's attempts at exercise. He ignored them, focusing on his own training. An hour later, Chen Fan was still going. 1998, 1999, 2000. After 2000 push-ups, Chen Fan's arms started shaking uncontrollably. He'd reached his absolute limit and collapsed onto the floor. He was surprised he'd managed to do 2000 in a row. In his previous life, he'd topped out at around 1800. Chapter 4 Naval Style 6. You are listening at novelfull.audio. If I had this body back in my old life, I'd be set. Too bad I'm stuck in the One Piece world. This kind of shape is maybe equivalent to an average marine grunt. Chen Fan finished his push-ups, his arms trembling, and knew he couldn't do any more for a while, so he immediately dropped into a horse stance, the best way to build core strength. And Chen Fan's horse stance wasn't your average stance. His legs were bent at an acute angle. Trust me, that's way harder than a right angle. Of course, that also meant it was a better workout. 2 hours crawled by. Chen Fan's legs shook uncontrollably. He'd hit his limit. Huff, huff. He stood up, gasping for air. Afterward, Chen Fan went back to his corner to chill. Around noon, the door to the 6th floor swung open again, and the black-clad guards came in, carrying food. Like always, they left 3 portions outside each cell, then they booked it, acting like they didn't see Barrick's dead body. Hey, wait a sec. Chen Fan started to call them back. Then, some of the other pirates spoke up. Hey kid, save your breath. These guys are deaf and dumb. Whatever you say, they won't hear a thing, and forget about them taking care of the body. Nobody's coming for it. You can leave it there to rot, or hack it up and flush it down the toilet. An old man in the cell across from Chen Fan, shackled with sea stone, told him. Hearing that, Chen Fan realized why the guards who brought the food never said a word. They were deaf and mute. Looking at Barrick's massive corpse, Chen Fan sure didn't want to live with it. Without hesitating, he grabbed the sharp stone and started carving Barrick into chunks. For the parts he couldn't cut, Chen Fan tore at them for over 10 minutes. Finally, Chen Fan forced Barrick's body through the waist. Shoot, good thing Chen Fan was a hitman in his former life. Otherwise, any normal person would be puking their guts out. After cleaning up, Chen Fan went to the sink and washed up. Then he looked at the food in front of his cell. Chen Fan thought to himself that the 6th floor was way better than the lower levels. Besides the loneliness and darkness, actually, it was all the Navy's plan. They just wanted the pirates on this level to survive, enjoying the never-ending darkness and isolation, and eventually turning into a pile of bones. Snapping back to reality, Chen Fan looked at the 3 identical portions, grabbed one, and started chowing down. Instantly, that familiar green warmth spread through his body, the fatigue began to fade, and his physical strength ticked up, slowly but surely. After polishing off a whole portion, Chen Fan felt almost 70% full, so he started on the second one, but after downing about a third of it, Chen Fan was stuffed. 90% full, easy. He stopped eating. It seemed like his appetite let him eat maybe 1 1/3 portions at the most, which was fine, really. That way, he wouldn't overdo it and burn out from the training. Otherwise, there was no way he could get stronger fast. Lunch done, Chen Fan went back to his corner to chill. About 2 hours went by. Chen Fan felt his strength was almost back. He kept being amazed at how tough and resilient people were in the One Piece world. Back in his old life, his body was at its peak, pushing it harder would just backfire. But here, no limits. Without another thought, Chen Fan started his workout. Afternoon training was the same as the morning. 2,000 push-ups, 2 hours of horse stance, but he added in 1,000 punches. By nightfall, Chen Fan had those 1,000 punches down, but he couldn't even lift his arms anymore. Right then, the guards showed up with dinner. Chen Fan didn't hesitate. He went right over and started scarfing down the food. A faint warmth spread through his body like rain after a drought, restoring Chen Fan's strength and slowly increasing his stamina. Just like before, Chen Fan could only eat a third of the second portion before he felt his stomach start to bloat. After eating, Chen Fan crashed in his corner, resting until the next day, when he got up and started training again. From then on, Chen Fan's life was nothing but a repetitive drag. Just train, train, train. Time flew by, and almost a year went by. By now, most of the other pirates on the 6th floor of Impel Down looked at Chen Fan with respect, because they'd all seen that. Whenever Chen Fan got a cellmate, he'd kill him, no questions asked, and they'd noticed that Chen Fan was way stronger than he'd been a year ago. Chen Fan had been doing this on purpose. After all, he was planning a jailbreak and didn't want anyone around to mess things up. 9998, 9999. And done. After that last rep, Chen Fan's arms were shaking so hard he couldn't do another one. All his practice over the last year had paid off. He'd gone from 1,000 push-ups to a massive 10,000. If he fought Barrack again, Chen Fan would be several times stronger. No need for a sneak attack, he could take Barrack head-on. Of course, that was assuming Barrack was still shackled up. If Barrack was at full strength, Chen Fan wouldn't stand a chance. Still, Chen Fan wasn't satisfied with his progress. He thought, what's the best way to build a foundation in the world of pirates? The Navy's 6 styles, of course, they not only help Marines get strong fast in the early stages, but they also let you understand hockey, armament and observation. Honestly, if Chen Fan hadn't ended up on the 6th floor of Impel Down, joining the Navy might have been the best move. It was a stable start, and the Navy had the best training resources, but now he was on the 6th floor of Impel Down. How could he train in the Navy's 6 styles? Chapter 5, Navy Rebel General. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chen Fan was lost in thought, realizing that Impel Down's 6th floor likely held more than just pirates. It probably housed naval traders too. He immediately asked the others, "Hey, anyone know if there are any Navy guys locked up with us?" "Well, ain't that something? For a year, all you've done is train. Now you're suddenly full of questions." "Yeah, what's with the sudden curiosity, kid? Got some grand plan?" "I'd advise you to just give it up and chill out. What's the point of working out down here, anyway? Especially with those sea stone cuffs, they're gonna knock your strength down to like, 10%. True that, kid. You must have roughed up at least 6 or 7 guys in the past year to end up on the same floor as us." Nobody took Chen Fan seriously. Mostly, they told him to accept his fate, that escape was impossible with those sea stone cuffs. Chen Fan just smirked and ignored them. He wasn't a devil fruit user, after all. These separate cuffs on his arms didn't really affect him. Rebellious Navy Admiral, huh? Yeah, the guy next to you, on Hayden Road, is a former Rear Admiral. I remember tangling with him before I got thrown in here. Chen Fan hadn't expected to get any useful info from his question, but then, the guy diagonally across from him spoke up. Chen Fan followed his gaze. Looks like it. I seem to recall you were a rear admiral, but you went rogue and got picked up, just like us. Hayden Rode shot a mocking look at a stern-faced man sitting behind him. The man, Budek, just glared, seething. Besides being a skilled fighter, he was also a devil fruit user, and he was not only chained but also cuffed with sea prism stone. Hayden Rode, on the other hand, was only chained. They'd fought before, and Budek had always come out worse. Got a problem? Budek asked Chen Fan, his face tight. Even though he was a disgraced admiral, he had no love for pirates, only contempt. I want you to teach me the Navy's 6 powers. Chen Fan stated plainly. The other prisoners immediately started up again. What are you even on about? You want to learn the Navy's 6 powers? What good is that stuff anyway? Yeah, marine techniques are totally useless. I remember one time, a marine just stood there, using iron body and let me chop him. What a joke. Seriously, kid, if you're gonna train, pick a good skill. Why waste time with their Navy junk? It's worthless, the pirate sneered, dismissing the 6 powers. They were big-shot pirates, after all. They naturally looked down on the basic skills used by the Navy. More importantly, they were pirates, enemies of the Navy. Why would they praise anything the Navy produced? What do you guys know? You're so tough, can you beat Vice Admiral Garp? Even as a traitor, Budek couldn't stand hearing the 6 powers insulted. Mentioning Garp's name silenced the cell for a few seconds. They all knew none of them could stand up to Iron Fist Garp, but after a moment, another pirate spoke up. Oh, listen to you, the Navy traitor admiral, still name-dropping a Navy hero. That's rich. I'd think you were still a rear admiral if I didn't know better. That the pirate across the way, a weasel-faced guy with a sharp tongue, was getting to him. Budek glared, face twisting with anger. You. What am I gonna do? Gotta come over here and beat me up? You're no better than us, Navy rebel admiral. You're stuck here with the rest of us, can't escape either, can you? Marjorie taunted. Budek clenched his fists, rage burning in his eyes, but he was helpless. He knew they were right. He was a traitor. Please, teach me the Navy's 6 powers. Chen Fan wasn't interested in their bickering, he just wanted to get stronger. Why should I? I don't want to. Budek refused flatly. Yeah, only thing Budek's good at is getting his butt kicked by this little dude. That's right. Think this kid's still got a big head? Why would anyone teach you? They won't. The pirates immediately went back to taunting, desperate for entertainment. What do you want? What will it take for you to teach me the Navy's 6 powers? Anything you name that I can do, I promise I will. Chen Fan wasn't about to give up. Budek hesitated, lost in thought, but a few seconds later, he shook his head and looked at Chen Fan. How can you say that? Even if I had something I needed done, there's no way you could do it, locked up here like I am. Besides, they're right. Training on the 6th level of Impel Down is pointless. You don't stand a chance of escaping. Who knows what's gonna happen? Besides, I just like training. The days here are gonna be boring anyway. Why not just tell me the training methods and principles of the Navy's 6 powers? Maybe, if I ever get out of here, I can help you. Chen Fan looked at Budek earnestly, seeing the hope and potential in Chen Fan's eyes. Budek was reminded of his younger self, and then of his terrible memories. Budek had been loyal to the Navy his whole life, killing not 1,000 pirates, but maybe 800. He became a traitor because of one man, a vice admiral, who had raped his wife in front of him and killed his daughter. Budek managed to escape and tried to get revenge, but he was ambushed and captured. Worse, Budek had no proof, no one to vouch for him. He was thrown into Impel Down for trying to assassinate the vice admiral. Chapter 6: Practicing the 6 Naval Styles. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When Budek thought about it, anger flooded his face. His only purpose now was to kill Vice Admiral Henry David and get revenge for his wife and daughter. Even if I tell you, you can't do it, he said. After a moment, Budek looked at Chen Fan, seeing hope flicker in Budek's eyes. Chen Fan pressed on. What if I could? Just tell me. If there's even a chance, I'll help you. You gotta have something to look forward to. There must always be hope in life. Budek seemed to come to a decision. Okay, if you help me kill Vice Admiral Henry David, I'll teach you the 6 naval styles. Deal. If I ever get out of here, I'll help you take him down. Chen Fan jumped at the opportunity. Okay, I know it's a long shot, Budek said. But you're right. Staying here is a drag. At least this gives me some hope. He paused. The 6 naval styles are, finger pistol, iron body, shave, moonwalk, tempest kick, and paper body. I suggest you start with moonwalk. Alright. Chen Fan was relieved Budek wasn't being stubborn. The moonwalk technique involves continuously kicking the air. Once you can kick the air 8 times per second, you've mastered it. Budek patiently explained the ins and outs of the moonwalk, like a seasoned instructor. After all, he'd taught at naval training camps before. Chen Fan listened intently, desperate to become stronger. The pirates in the surrounding cells snickered. These two are out of their minds. One's actually teaching, and the other's actually practicing. Yeah, Budek's really lost it. Does he actually think that kid has a chance to escape? That idiot on the other side of Hayden Road is a fool too. Navy guys really are dumber than us pirates. Exactly. What's the point of training? You're stuck here anyway. And Budek's dreaming if he thinks that kid's gonna avenge him. The taunts continued, but Budek and Chen Fan ignored them. After Chen Fan understood the principles of moonwalk, he started practicing in the cell. From then on, Chen Fan added moonwalk training to his basic physical routine, making each day feel more productive. Exhausted after training, he would chow down to replenish his energy. He could now eat 2 portions of the high-protein food before feeling full. Tap, tap. Chen Fan kept practicing in the cramped cell. At first, he could only manage 3 steps per second. Budek watched without comment. It was still a decent start. Most naval cadets only managed 2 steps at first. Time trickled by, days turned into weeks. Chen Fan trained relentlessly, and Budek patiently corrected his mistakes. Budek marveled at Chen Fan's dedication and rapid improvement. He chalked Chen Fan up as a freak of nature, and even felt pity for him. With his talent and hard work, he would have gone far in the new world if he weren't trapped in Impel Down. In the beginning, the pirates mocked them relentlessly, but Chen Fan paid them no mind. They eventually grew bored and stopped, but they still saw Chen Fan as wasting his time. What was the point of training hard if he was going to be stuck in Impel Down for the rest of his life? 15 days later. Bang, bang. The sound of footsteps in the air echoed. Chen Fan took 8 consecutive steps in mid-air. Budek was floored. He'd never seen anyone master moonwalk so quickly. He thought of those 3 monsters in the Navy, the Sakazukis. The fastest of them, Sakazuki, took 20 days to master moonwalk. Chen Fan was 5 days faster than Sakazuki. Phew. Chen Fan took a deep breath, a look of excitement on his face. After 15 days of intense training, he had finally mastered one of the 6 naval styles. He was lucky to have food to generate heat in his body, helping him recover and avoid injury. Otherwise, he wouldn't have progressed so quickly. Seeing Budek's astonishment, Chen Fan knew he was progressing at an incredible rate. After several seconds, Budek snapped back to reality and said, Chen Fan, since you're so talented, I'll teach you the other 5 styles. Budek then explained the techniques for the other 5 styles. 1. Shave, an instantaneous acceleration sprint for extreme speed. 2. Tempest kick, like a sword, attacking with deadly precision. 3. Iron body, focuses energy to harden the body's surface, making it as tough as iron. 4. Finger pistol, channels energy into the fingers, turning them into bullets capable of piercing steel. 5. Paper body, controls the body with effortless grace, like painting on paper. Chen Fan now had a general understanding. The underlying principles of the 6 naval styles weren't that difficult. The challenge was having the physical ability to execute them. Just as Chen Fan was about to continue training, the sixth-floor door creaked open, letting in a sliver of light. 4 guards dragged in a burly man covered in wounds. They hauled him to the cell next to Chen Fan's and shackled him with special chains and handcuffs. Chapter 7. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Afterwards, the 4 guards left. Chen Fan noticed the new guy was a giant, even bigger than Barrick, who he'd killed. He had to be over 16 feet tall, his head nearly scraping the ceiling of the cell. More importantly, his shackles weren't made of sea stone, which meant this brute didn't have any special abilities. "Hey, kid, what are you staring at? You got a death wish?" The giant, Mond, glared at Chen Fan, clearly not happy about the attention. Chen Fan, who'd been cool as a cucumber, now had a dangerous glint in his eyes. No way he was letting this guy live. The other pirates in the cells were settling in to watch the show. They'd learned over the past year or so that this seemingly harmless kid was a stone-cold killer. Anyone who ended up in his cell was a goner, and he was quick, brutal, and precise, always taking advantage of the newly arrived prisoners when they were wounded and vulnerable. Right now, these pirates were practically drooling at the thought of Chen Fan taking down this new giant. Mond might have been defeated and captured by the vice admiral, but he had a nasty reputation out there. He definitely wasn't going to take kindly to some little punk giving him the stink eye. Chen Fan was already pretty tall for his age. At only 14, he was almost 6 feet, but he was still a shrimp in this world. The main thing was, he looked like a baby. "Listen, kid, I'm Mond, a big-time pirate with a million bounty. You keep staring at me like that, and I'll gouge your eyes out." Mond snarled at Chen Fan. Chen Fan smirked. In a blink, he vanished, his fists like missiles aimed straight for Mond's face. Mond looked surprised. He hadn't expected the kid to actually throw down, but, being a pirate with a million price tag on his head, his reflexes were top-notch. He threw up his right arm to block, staggering back as the punch landed. Mond felt a jolt of pain shoot through his arm, and his surprise grew. This kid wasn't just a punk, he packed a serious punch. Chen Fan, showing no emotion, didn't let up, hammering Mond with a flurry of blows. Mond, chained and already hurt, could only defend himself. He didn't dare to go all out. One wrong move, and the spikes in the shackles would tear through his wrists and ankles. After the storm of punches, Chen Fan snapped his right leg up, slamming it into Mond's head. Mond, tied up, couldn't react and could only watch the kick coming. Boom, star. Mond's head swam, and he crashed into the wall, his face twisted with rage, and his eyes blazed with murderous intent. "You little punk, you're dead." Mond threw a punch with all his might. Chen Fan, unfazed, channeled all his strength into his own fist and met the blow head-on. Boom, star. Their fists collided like boulders, sending both Chen Fan and Mond stumbling back. Mond was furious that he'd been matched by some kid. He thought to himself, if I wasn't chained up, I wouldn't even be using a tenth of my strength. How could I let this little runt push me back? Chen Fan also realized this guy was stronger than anyone he'd faced before. His face lit up with excitement. This brutal, bare-knuckle brawl was exactly what he craved. In the next instant, Chen Fan disappeared again. The 2 figures, one huge, one small, clashed in the cell, blood flying everywhere. Chen Fan's right leg lashed out at Mond's body like a whip. At the same time, Mond's fist hammered into Chen Fan's gut like a rock. They fought like wild animals, claws and teeth, using every dirty trick in the book. Mond's initial arrogance was gone, replaced by a grim determination. He knew that, in his current state, shackled and injured, he could actually die if he didn't give it everything he had. Mond's fists kept slamming into Chen Fan. As a pirate with a million bounty, he knew all the moves, but he couldn't use them now. Using too much force would just drive the spikes in the shackles deeper into his wrists and ankles. He had to carefully control his power while fighting. Combined with his lingering injuries, Mond's stamina was fading fast. Huff, huff. He gasped for air, his punches slowing down. Chen Fan noticed. Although he was getting tired too, he was in better shape than Mond. His fists kept coming, relentless, giving Mond no chance to breathe. But with his keen observation haki, Mond could still dodge, even while chained up. Luckily, he was restrained by special handcuffs and didn't dare to use armament haki. Otherwise, Chen Fan would have been in for a real fight. Time ticked by. After more than 10 minutes, Mon's injuries worsened, and his controlled power sapped his energy, his hockey usage was taking a toll, and his stamina was plummeting. He went from fighting back to just blocking, and sometimes he couldn't even manage that. His face was a bloody mess, wounds covered his body. Chen Fan, a bloodthirsty god, showed no signs of stopping. His powerful fists rained down on Mon's head. Mon, unwilling to give up, tried to fight back, but his injuries and exhaustion held him back. Boom, Chen Fan's punch, like a cannonball, slammed into Mon's face. With a crash, Mon's massive body hit the ground, his vision blurred, his strength drained, and pain seared through him. Mon knew he'd been beaten by this kid, and he was about to die. I can't accept this. If we were outside, you wouldn't last 3 seconds against me. Mon thrashed weakly, his face twisted with rage, glaring at Chen Fan. He wanted to get up and keep fighting. Chapter 8 Master It All. You are listening at novelfull.audio. But the injuries and pain were so intense, he couldn't even stand. So what? Winner takes all. I'll be the one standing in the end. Chen Fan's eyes burned with cold determination. He looked at the seriously injured Mon, sprawled on the ground, and without hesitation, drove a punch straight into Mon's throat. Crack! Mon's fingers twitched, his eyes locked on Chen Fan, then he went completely still, lifeless. After finishing off his opponent, Chen Fan collapsed, breathing heavily. The watching pirates sighed. Chen Fan was still the winner. This kid's getting stronger. He actually took down that brute. Yeah, he's ruthless, no holding back. Anyone locked in with him is plain unlucky. Too bad he's stuck here. If he were out there, he could have made a real name for himself in the new world. Don't you think he seems less affected by those sea prism stone cuffs than he should be? No way. He's wearing sea prism stone. He's gotta be a devil fruit user. Maybe after all this time, he's managed to squeeze out a little bit of strength. The pirates, having watched Chen Fan fight time and again, couldn't figure it out. Chen Fan didn't seem as weakened as he should be. Some immediately scoffed. They were New World pirates, they'd seen things. They knew some devil fruit users, even when restrained by sea prism stone, could still lift rocks or manage some level of strength. Budek, watching Chen Fan after the kill, felt a mix of emotions, pity for the young man and despair for himself. He thought Chen Fan, with his talent, work ethic, and cold-blooded resolve, would have become a real powerhouse if he were free. He could have had his revenge, but this was level 6 of Impel Down, where the myth was that no one ever escaped. Even a marine admiral might not be able to break free, let alone Chen Fan. After only a few seconds of rest, Chen Fan went to the front of the cell and started eating. A rush of warmth spread through him, slowly easing his fatigue, mending his wounds, and even gradually strengthening him. He felt full after eating just half. He had only finished lunch not long ago. Then, Chen Fan walked over to Mon's body and began to calmly cut it into pieces, tossing them one by one down the waste disposal chute. After cleaning up, he started training again that afternoon, as if he hadn't just fought a life-or-death battle. The pirates who heard the familiar sound of fists punching air were stunned. Is this kid some kind of monster? I feel like he's hardly even winded. Right? His recovery is insane. Big fight, barely over, and he's already got the juice to train again in half an hour. Monster, I'm telling you. Now I know why he's locked up on the 6th floor with us. The pirates marveled at Chen Fan's freakish talent and insane resilience. These were pirates with bounties of at least 100 million, all-powerful individuals. For them to be impressed by Chen Fan's talent said something. Ignoring the chatter, Chen Fan kept training, sweat dripping, a feeling of fatigue weighing him down, but his face was alight with excitement. He loved the feeling of getting stronger, step by step. If he wasn't afraid of pushing his body past its limit, he'd train around the clock. It wasn't until about 8 or 9 in the evening that Chen Fan finally stopped. On level 6, time didn't exist. Chen Fan could only guess noon and evening based on when the guards brought the food. Thankfully, the guards were pretty consistent with their meal deliveries. In the days that followed, Chen Fan stuck to his routine, basic physical training in the morning, Navy 6 powers training in the afternoon. Time flowed, like grains of sand, day after day, month after month, and finally, a year had passed, Chen Fan was not just stronger, but also a good 4 inches taller. He had completely mastered all 6 powers, and he was damn good at them. Your 6 powers are as good as mine now. I can't teach you anything more. I hope you remember what you promised me. Budek had been amazed by Chen Fan's talent countless times over the year, and it had given him a spark of hope. At first, it was just grasping at something, anything, to pass the time. Now, he truly believed this young man might just have a chance to pull off the impossible and shatter the myth that no one ever escaped Impel Down. Don't worry, I gave my word. Thanks for teaching me so much these past 2 years. If I ever get out of here, I'll definitely help you kill that bastard. Chen Fan might not be emotional, but he had principles, feeling the power in his body, developed through a year of 6 powers and constant physical training. Chen Fan had asked Budek to estimate his strength. Budek said he was about as strong as a regular Marine colonel. That was insane. Even the Navy's most impressive up-and-comers probably weren't that strong at Chen Fan's age, but even with his rapid improvement, it wasn't enough. Breaking out of prison would take more than the strength of a Marine colonel. He needed at least the power of a Marine vice admiral. Chen Fan sank into thought, planning how to get stronger. Soon, Chen Fan had a detailed plan. For someone who was all about physical strength, what was the ultimate power-up? Hockey, of course. Now that he had mastered the 6 powers, and his proficiency was so high, pushing himself further was going to be tough. He could try to extend them, invent a 7th power. With his current physical conditioning, he should be able to do it. Chapter 9: 2-Color Domineering. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Of course, learning armament hockey and observation hockey is crucial. You just can't survive in the new world without hockey. Budek, can you teach me the 2 types of hockey again? Chen Fan was actually a little relieved he was on the 6th floor, since it only housed really strong individuals. Budek wasn't all that surprised Chen Fan wanted to learn hockey, especially now that he was physically ready for it. Of course. Just remember, if you ever get out of here, you gotta help me get revenge. Budek also wanted Chen Fan to get stronger, because that would increase his own chances of escape. Budek was about to explain the hockey training, when the door to the 6th floor opened again. 3 familiar figures came into view, but they definitely wouldn't recognize Chen Fan. Leading the way was a man in an Impel Down uniform with a white coat draped over it, and a really wide chin. He was covered in injuries and handcuffed, like a prisoner. It was Shiryu of the Rain. Behind him were Magellan and Hannibal. Hannibal, on the left, wore a black coat, looked pretty ferocious, and had 2 black horns on his head. Magellan, on the right, had a headdress that looked like an Egyptian pharaoh's and a belly swollen like some kind of demon, with a face like a Prajna mask. They seemed to be escorting Shiryu. Shiryu, cool your jets in there for a while. Do you have any idea how many guards died because of you this time? Magellan said angrily. So what? When I get out in a few days, I'm gonna beat you good. Shiryu showed no remorse and even threatened Magellan. Magellan just looked helpless. Hannibal, lock this guy up. Why should I listen to you? You're just the vice warden, not the warden. And when the warden retires, I'm definitely getting his job. You should be trying to get on my good side now, and I might take care of you later. Hannibal had no intention of obeying Magellan and looked disdainful. Magellan was fuming, wishing he hadn't been stuck working with these 2. One of them attacks everyone indiscriminately, almost like he's doing it on purpose. If he wasn't so strong, he'd be locked up on the 6th floor forever. The other one constantly brags about becoming the next warden. It was giving Magellan a headache. He had to lock up Shiryu himself. Afterward, Magellan wanted to get away from those 2 as quickly as possible. Plus, his stomach was acting up again. Hannibal didn't want to stay on the 6th floor either, so he followed Magellan out. Watching them leave, Chen Fan fell into thought. From their argument, he realized that Magellan wasn't the current warden. He was just the vice warden. Of course, this was because figures like Fleet Admiral Sengoku hadn't been born yet, and Sakazuki and the others hadn't become the 3 admirals of the Navy. Magellan not being the warden at this point made sense. They looked to be in their early 20s now. Their strength probably hadn't peaked yet, so who was the current warden? Chen Fan couldn't figure it out. The original story never mentioned who Magellan's predecessor was, but Chen Fan was sure of one thing: it was someone as strong as, or close to, an admiral. Otherwise, they couldn't have become the warden of Impel Down. Oh, isn't that the famous warden of Impel Down? Why is he locked up too? Yeah, where's that famous sword of yours? What happened to it? How embarrassing. It's an honor to have the warden of Impel Down locked up with us. The pirates immediately started taunting Shiryu. Shiryu sneered, "You bastards, just wait until I get out of here. You'll regret it." The pirates didn't seem worried. After all, trapped in this endless loneliness, they'd lost all hope and weren't afraid of death. That was the horror of the 6th level, the endless hell. Chen Fan didn't pay much attention to their bickering. He was more focused on learning hockey. Budek, please continue explaining the hockey training. Budek started talking again. Most people know there are 3 types of hockey: observation hockey, armament hockey, and conqueror's hockey. Armament hockey and observation hockey are latent powers inside you. You just need to unlock them. Everyone has this power, but you have to reach a certain level of physical strength to unlock it. Of course, unlocking it is only the first step. The second step is learning how to use it. Conqueror's hockey is a type of kingly aura. It's unique, even in the New World. You could say it's innate. Even if you have the potential for conqueror's hockey, you might not be able to use it. Most people with conqueror's hockey awaken it after a major shock or a near-death experience. Those with conqueror's hockey can exert immense pressure. Ordinary people can't withstand it and will pass out, or even die, but conqueror's hockey is capable of even more. I've heard of more advanced uses, but I don't know what they are. Hearing about conqueror's hockey, Chen Fan wondered if he had the potential to be a king. Chapter 10: The Domineering Training Method. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At the same time, Budek launched into an explanation of hockey principles and training methods for Chen Fan. Of the 3 types of hockey, armament hockey is the most direct way to boost your strength. It's like an invisible armor you can coat yourself with, massively increasing your defense and the power behind your attacks. Also, armament hockey is key against devil fruit users, especially those with Logia-type powers. Their ability to turn into natural elements makes them immune to most physical attacks. Without armament hockey, or some other special ability, you can't even scratch a Logia user, no matter how strong you are. As he spoke, Budek carefully focused his energy. A black aura seemed to envelop his right fist, pulsing with power. This is armament hockey. After just a few seconds, Budek was already panting. The effort of controlling his powers so precisely was taking its toll, and on top of that, as a devil fruit user, the sea stone handcuffs sapped his strength. What I just showed you is just the first stage. From what I understand, there are 5 stages of armament hockey in total, and honestly, I've only mastered the first myself. This initial stage is called invisible coating, the second stage is tangible coating, and the third is tangible hardening. The 4th stage is where the armament hockey is completely concentrated in the hand, granting penetrating power, and the 5th stage. That's the terrifying, internal destruction. From what I know, Vice Admiral Garp has mastered armament hockey to that level. Budek's face showed clear admiration when he mentioned Garp. Most of the Marines looked up to him. Snapping back to the present, Budek continued his explanation, shifting his focus to observation hockey. Similar to armament hockey, observation hockey is also divided into 5 stages. The first stage is instinctive awareness, where you rely on your gut to dodge attacks. That's the stage that guy you were fighting earlier was at. The second stage is predictive awareness, where your body instinctively avoids danger, without you even having to think about it. If that guy had been at that level, you wouldn't have landed a hit so easily. In the third stage, sensory perception, you can actually sense an enemy's movements using your hockey. The 4th stage is preemptive prediction, allowing you to anticipate an enemy's attack and react accordingly. The 5th stage, seeing the future, is incredibly powerful. Predicting the future. That's game-changing in a fight, though. I've also heard that the 5th stage of observation hockey isn't always about seeing the future. It has other functions too. What's it called? Budek paused, struggling to remember. Hearing the voice of all things. Roger had that ability. Hayden Liu, who had been silent until now, spoke up suddenly. After that, he retreated back into silence. He knew about Roger's abilities from first-hand experience, having faced him in the past. Though, calling it a fight was generous. It was more like Roger wiping the floor with him. This time, the other pirates in their cells didn't bother with their taunts. They realized that Chen Fan and the others just ignored them, making the whole thing pointless. So, how do you train in hockey? Chen Fan knew about Roger's ability to hear the voice of all things. And he knew that future characters would have the ability to see the future. Seeing Chen Fan's eagerness, Budek began to explain the training methods. In the Marines, armament hockey training involves taking a beating, over and over. You strengthen your body's defenses, waiting for the chance to tap into your armament hockey. As for observation hockey, you need to clear your mind, reach out and feel nature, relying on your instincts to dodge attacks. But based on our experience, we've developed a method that trains both types of hockey simultaneously. That's where you close your eyes and take a beating. It toughens your body and forces you to rely on your instincts to avoid getting hit. Close your eyes and get beaten. Chen Fan thought there was a lot of logic in that. No wonder the Marines at New World headquarters were so skilled in both armament and observation hockey. Starting tomorrow, I'll be throwing stones at you. You can only close your eyes and rely on your instincts to dodge them. Budek told Chen Fan seriously. The other pirates didn't voice any disagreement. Though they hated to admit it, the Marines' methods were actually pretty effective. Meanwhile, Shiryu of the Rain, locked away in his cell, also noticed Chen Fan. He was surprised to see someone training on the 6th floor of Impel Down, but he didn't give it much thought. After all, what kind of threat could someone be who didn't even know the basics of weapons, armament hockey, or observation hockey? In a prison like this, pirates without hockey were basically at the bottom of the food chain. He wasn't worth Shiryu's time. In the days that followed, Chen Fan trained relentlessly with Budek's help. Scars became commonplace as he closed his eyes and tried to dodge the stones. The concept was simple, but the execution was incredibly difficult. However, every time Chen Fan ate, his injuries would start to recover again. Budek couldn't help but marvel at Chen Fan's monstrous resilience. Each day, Chen Fan pushed himself to the limit, squeezing every last drop of potential out of his time. He worked on the basics in the morning, practiced the Navy's 6 styles in the afternoon, and contemplated the secrets of extension. Evenings and nights were dedicated to mastering dual-color hockey, finally collapsing into sleep in the early hours of the morning. Despite the high-intensity training, Chen Fan woke up full of energy every single day. The pirates watching this unfold could only shake their heads in disbelief, calling him a monster. But only Chen Fan knew the secret behind his incredible recovery. It was all thanks to the power of his heat fruit. Without it, his progress would be cut in half. Even with the daily progress, Chen Fan noticed a growing problem. The food rations for 3 people weren't enough to fuel his training.